Hello and welcome to the show. This is Martin Willis, and I'm joined with a whole bunch of people here. We're live from the Phoenix area. I was at boot camp and observed what was going on there. It was fascinating. We're going to be talking about that and a whole bunch of other things here. I have a whole bunch of people with me here today. We're going to be, each one is going to do a little quick blurb about themselves. If you go to my website, podcastufo.com, you'll see the blog this week is a country singer, UFO occupants, and men in black. And that's about Johnny Sands, I think it is. Johnny Sands, a country western singer, had a sighting back in 1976. Very interesting with these strange looking, angry, mean looking beings. And Men in Black, it's a great story by Charles Lear. Check that out. So here in Phoenix, it's everywhere in the country, changed time. We have missing time here, right?
We do.
So we have our missing time.
It never changes.
It never changes except the Navajo Nation, right?
Mm.
So anyway, so it's been great out here. I've been out here almost a week, really enjoying the nice warmth, and it's a lot of fun. And I have a bunch of great people with me today, and we're going to be talking about, like I said, boot camp and so much more. Thank you all who support the show. We wouldn't be here without your support, so I appreciate that. And let's start out by introducing Tia. Go ahead.
Hi.
Tara. Sorry, so terrible.
Hi, I'm Tara.
Good way to start.
Diulus, and I'm a field investigator with Phoenix Mufon, and I'm located here in Phoenix.
And I'm Stacey Wright. I'm the state director for Mufon here in Arizona. I'm also the director for Phoenix Mufon.
Hi, I'm Karen Brard, and I run the International UFO Congress, which is the annual conference.
Yeah.
Don't have a date yet. We also have a website, www.ufocongress.com, and a YouTube channel where you can watch all the old past videos, so check that out.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marianne Robb. I'm also a field investigator with Phoenix Mufon and live in Mesa, Arizona.
Oh, and my name is Marc D'Antonio, and I'm the chief photo and video analyst for Mufon. And we run remote observatories on two sides of the country, and we bring the night sky to people all over the world.
I'm Earl Door. I'm the field investigator for Phoenix Mufon also.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I live in Tucson. I attended the event this past weekend, so I'm a future Mufon field investigator.
Hi, I'm Matthew Roberts, former guest, previous guest on the show, and U.S. Navy gimbal event.
All right. So first of all, before I want the focus to be on Stacey for a minute, because I want to talk about how you revive. You were kind of instrumental in reviving Phoenix Mufon, which was dormant for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's hear how that all came about.
Okay, well, I just got this insane interest in UFOs after being just a fan of astronomy all my life. All of a sudden, one day, the UFO thing happened, and I thought, we're going to look into this, and maybe there's some great, wacky UFO meeting here in Phoenix. In this big world-class city, there's got to be something. But I found out by looking up this crazy group called Mufon that there had been nothing going on here for about 8 years, which was also strange because it was just after the Phoenix Lights incident in 1997. So for 8 years, there was nothing. I wrote to the executive director of Mufon and asked, why don't we have anything going on here? And he said, well, let's start something. So in 2 weeks, there was a meeting, and I raised my hand to volunteer to start up a new chapter for Phoenix. So that's how it all got started in 2007. And it was just, I don't think it was really anything that I did. It was just prime time for this area. People were ready for something like this. They just flocked to it, and it has just been a real success ever since then, and a lot of fun.
In the world, in the country.
Yeah, we have one of the best chapters around, I will say that. Our very first speaker when we started this up was actually Stanton Friedman, the godfather of ufology. So he came in and was our guest speaker for that very first meeting, and he did this free of charge because he's a great guy. He just wanted to see it start up again, and it did with a vengeance. So we're really happy to still be doing it.
Now, I'm surprised that that lagged 1997, March 13th, the Phoenix Lights event happened. And it's unbelievable that something like Mufon in this area would stagnate after all those thousands of witnesses.
It is uncanny that would happen. I think there was some investigations going on after the event, but there was a lot of infighting also going on and a bunch of stuff happened. I wasn't part of it then, so I don't know exactly, but it sounded like it was a real mess. And I believe that one of the Mufon directors may have passed away during that time as well, so it just all fell apart.
Right. Is there anyone in this room that was here when the Phoenix Lights happened and you knew about it happening? And
I had only heard about it, but I seized on it immediately.
You did?
To do an analysis, yeah.
Yeah.
But what was released was not what people saw. So that right there said, okay, this is not what you see in the sky. You see those
The famous photograph.
the famous video
Those are
over the
flares, right?
Estrellas.
Yeah.
That was probably the flare event that occurred after the actual event. And the actual event was something very different.
I ran into a guy in New Zealand on a cruise, told him I'm from Queen Creek. He said, oh, I was there when it was one stoplight. So I asked him, one stoplight, so you're a farmer or you're military? He goes, military. I said, where were you stationed? He said, Luke Air Force Base. And I said, back then, so you saw Phoenix Lights? He goes, oh, you just gave me goosebumps. He goes, I saw that and it was not ours. And I got his number, but I still got to hook up and chat with him a little more, see if we can con him into coming down and talking more about it. But you run into firsthand people all the time when you're talking about different things. And that was my deal with the Phoenix Lights.
And I lived here at the time, but I never saw it. I had someone from out of state call me the next day and said, hey, you guys had a UFO last night? And I'm like, we did? So I didn't see it, but my kids did. They were out in the desert with their dad and they saw it. And
Now, there are some people that, like Peter Davenport, was flooded with calls that night. And he was saying that this thing could have been estimated at miles wide. And I don't know, do you still hear that feedback? I mean, from people that talk about it?
yeah, oh yeah, we hear all sizes.
Yeah.
There were several of
18
them.
football fields wide, or every B-52 in our force could fit on the wingspan of this craft.
Yeah,
And
see-
there's just all
And
kinds
weren't
of
there
stories.
more than one craft as well?
Yeah, there were
Like,
7
there
or
were
8
some
craft.
different
that were
things.
reported.
And the problem is that whenever someone tries to estimate the size, here I go, Mr. Science, okay? Whenever someone tries to estimate size of something in the sky, they're going to be remarkably wrong,
No
okay?
reference.
And the Stanford University, the Eye Institute did studies to show that exact thing, that they don't know if it's a large thing far away or a small thing up close. And they don't have the depth perception because we didn't evolve eyes to be able to detect things like that in the sky. We detect predators within 250 feet of us. That's what our binocular vision is good at. It's not good at estimating sizes, especially where there's no reference points in the sky. And that's exactly what the Phoenix Lights represented.
Right.
No reference points.
And one thing about how people say, oh, it's just flares. Yes, the picture they put out was flares. Nobody really got a good picture of what was actually happening for some reason. But the fact that Peter Davenport got tons of calls, which we have flares all the time. He doesn't get tons of flares every time, tons of calls every time there's a flare, because
Right.
that would be every weekend,
Yeah.
That's right.
It was different. It was different. So people who say, oh, it was just flares, no. People know what flares are now. They don't get calls for UFOs every time there's a flare account, but they did,
Right.
on that day. They had, it was just weird and unusual and
And it
silent. And
it wasn't just
it was
Phoenix.
over people's heads, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't just Phoenix this thing
Right.
traveled.
Exactly.
Didn't it go right into
New
other
Mexico.
states, New Mexico?
Yeah.
It went into Mexico,
Mexico?
over the border into Mexico.
And what about previous or since? Have there been other sightings of similar craft?
There's been 4 or 5 different times that it's been on the news here in the Phoenix area. I was a witness to one of them, and this was back in 2009. And we just seem to have this, thing about 4 or 5 lights at an angle, equidistant, that go out one at a time. And what I saw was not pointing toward Barry Goldwater Range. It was somewhere else. So, but they are all over the valley, and we do see them. They're on the news. We have footage of them.
And sometimes
Can't explain it.
they get captured in the most unexpected places. For instance, our observatory in the desert. I have an all sky camera on it. All right. Well, I started up the all sky camera before the observatory was even finished. And I was capturing nightly what was going on. And I would do videos all night long. Every 20 seconds, an image is captured. So 20 seconds long, all night long. So there's no gaps. And you see lots of trails of things like meteorites, satellites, planes. Okay. Well, I caught something which was very strange, even for me. All right. It was a semicircular pattern on a frame. And I thought, wow, well, if that's a jet from Luke, you're seeing the exhaust of the jet. All right. So in the next frame or the previous frame, I would have expected not to see it because the jet would have been facing the other way. So here you see the exhaust. When it comes around, you don't see it. But on the previous frame, it was there too. So it was all the way around, a complete circle that did not make any sense. It couldn't have been a military jet doing that. So there's anomalies beyond the triangles and the strings of lights. I mean, strings of lights now, what do people think? Starlink.
Yeah.
Right? Starlink. And
We saw one the other night.
Right. There's
Yeah.
Starlink trains. Okay. We capture them all the time in the telescope, and it's like, oh, they ruined this exposure. Okay. But the fact is, that is a linear line of satellites that you can see in the sky. Okay. You're not going to see a triangle. All right. A triangle is one thing. All right. A singular light is another. But the circular thing, I couldn't explain. I have no idea what that was.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk just a little bit. Of course, the reason I'm here is the boot camp that happened for field investigators. And Marianne, do you want to just touch bases on that? That was very interesting. I got to sit through. I only missed one thing, but it was really very interesting.
Well, I'm glad you were there. It
Yeah.
was an honor to have you part of this and
Oh,
to
thank
see
you.
what we do. Boot camp, Stacey Wright did an outstanding job putting this whole thing together.
Yes, you do.
The boot camp started basically Friday night. We did a meet and greet with all of the participants that came in from all over the country. I know Florida, Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan, Virginia,
Wisconsin.
Texas.
oh my gosh. I know a couple of years ago, we actually had people from Canada that came in. But it starts Friday at the meet and greet, and then 8:00 Saturday morning is the first class. And I got to teach the first class, which was advanced interviewing techniques. That's really a big one for these new field investigators.
With your background as a police officer.
Right. Just teach them what good questions, or not questions, but how to ask a good question. And also to see about deception. Can you sit there, look at someone, ask them a question and see, are they going to be answering that question honestly, or they may be giving you a little deception on
And
that.
just
try to hide.
here, I want to hear just what are the keys to the red flags?
Red flags. Ask somebody, hey, were you standing on your front porch last night when you saw this object? Yeah, I think I was. Okay, so a couple of little deceptions there. One, if you're standing on your front porch last night, which was maybe less than 12 hours ago, it should be a quick yes or no.
Yeah.
You don't need to hem-haw around, yeah, because you're probably thinking to yourself, how did I put it in the report? Am I telling the truth? Plus, I kind of close my arms, which I'm closing myself off to you.
Yeah.
I don't really want to tell you the truth. Those types of deception, covering your mouth, when you're answering a question, or basically you're standing there like you're open. But if I ask you a question, all of a sudden you close yourself off. You close your legs, you cross your legs, you cross your arms.
Yeah.
That's telling me you're closing yourself off.
Yeah.
Or
And
he
that's
has to
kind of
go to
what
the
we're looking
bathroom.
for. Well, that's true too. There's a good possibility.
Wow, you're good at that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what, as a field investigator, if you're doing an in-person interview, that's what we're looking for. Just your body language changing when we ask you a simple question.
Yeah. I started taking the body language courses. It's very interesting.
Oh,
Very,
it is really amazing.
Yeah.
So after I finished talking, I kind of had to leave for a few minutes, but we do have a psychiatrist that comes in and talks about the mental health of these witnesses, what to look for on mental health. And also, just because they might have some issues with their mental health, that you you don't take that for granted. You don't say, oh, well, he has mental health problems, and you dismiss him. You can never dismiss anyone whatsoever. That was Dr. Anthony
Yes.
that spoke about that. We had Marc D'Antonio here, our wonderful astronomer, talking about different things in astronomy, different anomalies that you might see up in the sky. Let's see, we've had Katie Grabowski talk about doing a CMS. Doing a CMS is a case management system, is a report that people fill out and send into Mufon. So she talks about that, about filling out reports and what is to be, what to look at in a report. We've also had, let's see, we also had our chief investigator, Dennis Fearmouth, do photo analysis, which is really a big one. Mark is really good at the photo analysis, being the chief investigator for all of Phoenix Mufon. And what you might see this big orb. Oh my gosh, there's an orb in my picture, so it must be a UFO. And of course, Mark or Dennis or somebody can explain it that no, it's a lens flare, or it's the sun, or something. We've done that. We also have a couple of field investigators that talk about interesting cases that they've done from the start to the end, which was really cool.
And the Navajo Rangers.
And the Navajo Rangers, oh my goodness gracious, Stan Milford Jr., John Dover. What they did was talk about the evidence collection.
Yeah.
And
All great stuff.
ERT.
yeah, and also of course the ERT is not emergency, experiencer resource team that and Gwen Farrell did that, and they talked about what the ERTs do, which is great. So
And then we did a Star Watch, which was a lot of
Yep.
fun.
Yeah,
we
that was pretty good. She actually remembered quite a lot of that, didn't she?
Yeah.
I did.
I was very impressed with that.
I'm with that.
The best part, I guess, of the whole thing was when we went out Sunday afternoon and we did the training. We had a mock crash, and all of the field investigators that went through the class all day Saturday and all day Sunday went out to what we call Needle Vista, and they found a crash site. And they did some training. They interviewed the witness. They collected evidence. They did everything out there at the site that they learned in the classroom. And that was really cool to see them in action. That was really neat.
Oh, by the way, we're going to be taking calls at the last half of the hour, so anyone can call in and ask any of these people some questions. Stacey, okay, go ahead.
For people
Karen?
out there, if you want to go to boot camp, you have to be
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah,
Raise
go
your
ahead.
hand.
Go ahead.
You have to already be a field investigator credentialed by Mufon.
No, you do not. This is for prospective field investigators, people who are just curious about what we do, or for, field investigators that just want to come in and hone some of their skill set.
Someone wanted to know give your background, Marianne, if you would.
Well, I was a police officer, state of Arizona for 34 years. As of today, I have been retired for 4 months.
That's why she's smiling.
And yes, been busier ever since I've retired. Again, I'm a field investigator for Phoenix Mufon. I've been doing that for about 6 years now. Little plug for my show. I also do a radio show here on KGRA DB on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock called I Detective, which is for police officers just talking about police work.
That's with Chris DiPerno.
Yep, that's with Chris DiPerno. And it is a great, it's a great show. But that's what I do. What else do I do? I teach, again, one of the things I do teach is the advanced interviewing techniques at the Mufon Symposium and also at the boot camp.
Now, has anyone ever given you grief in the department about your interest in UFOs?
That's a very good question. No. It is absolutely amazing. My team that I was on in Gilbert, I worked for Gilbert PD, the team, when they found out what I did, I had more people tell me stories of sightings that they might have had and experiences they've had. I've had Mark ride with me in a patrol car. I've had Stacey ride with me. Peter Robbins rode with me. It was so fantastic, but I actually had a lieutenant not too long ago. I figured he was going to kind of snicker when I told him what I did. And he sat down and told me, it's great that's what you do, because I have a story that I've been keeping inside for many years. He worked graveyard shift. As he's coming into the station, he sees a fireball. Fireball, huge. And I mean, he said it was just amazingly huge. He says it went from the east all the way to the west, all the way through the sky. And he said he'd never told anybody anywhere, whether it was his family or the PD or anything, because he didn't want to get laughed at or, you know, what are they going to think of him? So he finally was able to share that story with me and kind of just get it off his chest.
But it was a fireball. I mean, they're seen.
They
It's
are,
not a
but
UFO,
it's,
you know?
I don't know. It's unexplainable. I can't describe
Yeah.
what a fireball. I know that is one of, I think it's Cheryl Costa that does
In New York.
reports.
Yeah.
Yeah. And status, how do you say that? Statistics, thank you, of fireballs versus, say, a cigar-looking craft or a cylinder, disc, whatever. And fireballs is one of the things. So what actually it is, I couldn't tell you.
So Mark, because you're an astronomer, I want to tell you, I don't know if I've ever told you about my fireball that I saw in the 1980s.
Well, let's hear it.
Yeah. So now, I know that memory can be distorted, and I've told this on this show before. My fireball experience, to me, was more dramatic than my UFO experience.
Okay.
I was in a hot tub. Of course, I was in a hot tub when I saw my
So
UFO
it's already
too.
too much information here.
I was out on my back deck, and I lived about 3 miles from the ocean.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, just this thing came by the roof, and it looked really big, and it looked perfectly round, and it had orange cracks in it, and it was rotating, and sparks were coming off of it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear any sound. The thing was, and my ex-wife was with me in the hot tub, and I yelled to her 3 times, "Look, look, look!" And she finally turned and saw it. And I thought for sure it was going into the Atlantic Ocean, and because it seemed really low, and it was big, like I said. I mean, but it wasn't like the flame behind it or anything. It was just sparks coming off of it.
Mhm.
And then, so I told a friend about it, and he said CNN said that a large something landed in China.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was related or not.
It could
But-
have been.
But is that a possibility that I'm remembering that sort of correctly?
Yeah, I mean, see, fireballs are obviously chunks of space rock that are re-entering Earth's atmosphere. But when they first start to enter the Earth's atmosphere, they're not. Oh, cut it out. Karen says allegedly. Well, you know what? Okay, I mean, we are
Some
investigating
fireballs.
UFOs. Okay, but in general, okay, when fireballs enter the Earth's atmosphere, they encounter a little bit of the air and they start to burn, and that's where you start to see them, right? So you won't hear a sound until minutes later, when the sound finally gets to you from 90 miles away or so. And I've seen fireballs like that. And when they go long distance to the point where you can say, look, 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 that means that they're moving across the atmosphere and probably going to skip off the atmosphere.
It seemed very big.
Yeah, and that's probably because it was large. And as it came into the atmosphere, it started to burn. And when they burn, they're going to make a large glow around them. So you can't tell the actual size because they have a bigger glow around the burning core, the core that's actually, it's called ablation. That's ablating away. That's vaporizing and falling away. There's a big bright coma basically around it. And that stuff can go on. That can go all the way across horizon to horizon.
What about the sparks?
The sparks could be pieces of the thing that are just drifting back as it's vaporizing, falling apart. And luckily, it didn't decide to hit what we call the wall of the atmosphere over your house, because it would have blown out.
Chelyabinsk.
Chelyabinsk in Russia. That was one that a lot of people were injured.
Yeah.
I mean, thank heavens for all the security cameras that the Russians have on their businesses, because you see dash cams, security cams, door cams, window cams. You see all these cameras, and you see all the windows blow out. You see a security door that's steel, peen inward and just bend and just go in. Okay, and people fly to the ground inside. So that's kind of a really important thing here. You didn't get the shockwave because
No, I never even heard the sound.
Yeah. Well, you may have. It might have come later because I saw the same thing. They're called earth grazers when they actually cross the Earth's atmosphere and just leave the atmosphere. And I saw an earth grazer up in Maine, actually, just outside of Farmington, Maine, believe it or not. And you're from Maine.
Farmington.
Oh, Farmington.
Farmington.
Yeah, you can't get there from here.
No, that's right.
Okay, but Farmington, up in Farmington, Maine, I saw this earth grazer, and I had time to say to Scott, okay, I said, Scott, look, there's a meteor coming in, and it was just crossing the horizon like this, and it was leaving a slight smoke trail behind it. Okay, so it was further down the atmosphere and had been burning for a bit, and so it crossed all the way across the atmosphere, and he had time to take the binoculars from me and look at it, okay, as it passed, and hand it back to me, and I get to see the tail end. I want him to see it. So, but you could see cracks in it, and we saw one that actually was breaking apart, and I watched one actually come across the sky in another incident, and it broke into 3 distinct segments, and minutes later you heard boom, boom, boom,
Oh, wow.
as it broke apart.
How about
Because
that?
the sound takes time to get to you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all realistic stuff.
Wow. It was
Allegedly.
fantastic. It was fantastic. So before, I'm going to eventually ask everyone how they got interested in this topic, but for now, let's talk more about Phoenix. This is an area of high sightings, right? Does anyone want to talk about that part of it? The amount of sightings that come in?
I think Tara should take
Tara.
that one.
Well, I would first think that it has a lot to do with the wonderful weather we have here.
Yes.
And, you know, we have big skies and blue skies and mostly clear skies with some likely clouds here and there, but people are outside a lot. They're outside during the day and at night, and they're looking up, especially now since the Phoenix lights had happened. There's more people aware, and so I think that's might be why we get a lot more sightings reported, because there's more people around.
Lots of the warm weather states have more sightings.
Lots of
I would-
here.
Most of our reports that we get, the CMS we get here, they start off either one way or the other. Either I was walking the dog and looked up, or I was outside smoking a cigarette on my back patio and I looked up. They are about the 2
Or hot tub.
ways, or the hot tub.
Yeah.
Where they are the most common starting of the report, the starting sentence
If
of
it
the
weren't for
report.
people still smoking cigarettes and walking dogs. we
Yeah,
wouldn't know what
that's
was.
it.
But see, then there's other sightings that occur. Now, I had not had a sighting in my adult life, all right, until I was standing in this backyard behind this house we're in right now. And remember that?
Oh boy, I do.
We
Definitely.
actually did a police chase of this UFO that we saw, and it was 3 round objects. And I said, that looks like a cluster of balloons. And there were 3 round objects. They looked big enough so that when they came to the roof of a house that they were approaching, I was absolutely certain that they were going to bounce off the roof. But they went behind the roof like nothing and emerged from the other side. And it's like, whoa, those had to be many feet across, because that house was hundreds of feet away and that roof was that much further away, right? So this is why, you observe. And the thing is, when we looked, we couldn't really see it because the light was very, very dim on it. It
Like a
was,
shadow. I mean, it was
Yes.
almost what it did is as it was going right back here, as it was going from one house rooftop to the other, it actually was blacking out the stars that were in the sky. And it was like this big blob, and all you can see, it was just moving. It was a solid object. So whatever it was solid.
it was definitely like 3 round objects, and it looked like,
Darker lit.
No dark.
no, it was dark, but it was reflecting some light from the ground, which is how we saw it. The only way you could see it was by blocking out the street lights.
How did it happen to catch your attention?
Well, actually, I was standing in the backyard, probably with the assault gun to shoot flies or something at night, right? Just get them while they're sleeping.
Yeah,
And-
we were.
And she says, Marianne said, what's that? I'm like, what? I look in there, I see this thing in the dim light, but you had to block out other lights in order to see it.
Was it silent? Someone's asking.
It was
No.
totally silent,
Oh, totally.
which
yeah.
is why I said, oh, those have to be balloons.
Yeah.
But if they're balloons, they were each the size of weather balloons. And I mean, now I just finished telling you that you can't gauge scale, right? But
Yeah.
we did have reference points.
Okay.
The reference points were the distant house. That's right, Karen. They were this distant house, the slope of the roof. We knew how far that house was because we measured it after. And that distance made those balloons, if that's what they were, something that had to be at least 4 feet in diameter each.
Wow.
At that distance for that angular size in the sky. And unless there was some kind of big party going on that we didn't know about with, 3 giant 4-foot each balloons that were attached in a triplet like that.
We grabbed the keys. I ran in here, grabbed the keys off the counter, jumped in the Expedition, and started just hauling buns around town or around the community here, the neighborhood.
Yeah.
There was nobody out. There was no parties. It was a very quiet area.
We tried to find the activity that could have caused it, because I don't easily believe in something like that. I'm skeptical because I have to be, right? So as soon as we leave this development, all right, racing at above the speed limit, incidentally, the lights of the street lights of the main road completely blocked out any possibility of seeing this thing. So I tried to actually see where this thing was. We had a path. We could see the path. But then when we got out into the road, we couldn't see it anymore. It was almost like you wouldn't be able to see it if it was actually something that was going to be, I guess, if it was going to be something that was going to be like illuminated. If it was illuminated by itself. If it wasn't, then you would have been able to see it in the sky. But we or not see it in the sky. But the lights from below were illuminating it. And the thing that was different was there were street lights. And as something approaches street lights, it gets illuminated from here. And that illumination changes as it moves across the sky, right? This didn't change. It stayed constant. So that meant that it was, and again, this is a perspective and a reference point thing. It was further than the street lights on the other side of those houses as well, because those lights did not change when they if they were playing on it. You didn't see them change. You'd see the angle change of the light. We did not see any of that.
Now I'm going to ask you something. Did you report it?
Of course not.
My bad.
Don't look at me that way, Stacey. Well, the thing is, okay, if we reported it, we would report the sighting. We wouldn't be able to report any evidence. So I was really disappointed we couldn't get evidence. I actually took out the phone, and we had time to actually look and see if we could see it. And I said, I can't see it. And I have a manual application for the iPhone where you can use your camera in a manual manner. And I just couldn't get that thing to come up and be able to do this in time.
Were they in a row or?
They were like this. There was 3, one here, one. So it's like a triangular, like an equilateral triangle of 3 objects that were round.
Yeah,
but
and it was
solid
solid in the middle.
reflecting. Yeah,
There was no light in there. You could not see anything.
Yeah, they were close together. And again, I did not discount that they could just be really big balloons, but I did expect them to act like balloons. The light should have changed as they moved across the landscape.
And they would have been huge.
That would have been big.
I don't know if I've ever seen a 4-foot balloon.
Well, I have.
Okay, I guess unless it's okay.
No.
It was crazy.
Not to give you too much of a hard time, you two, but reporting something like this could find other witnesses that
Oh, no
may.
doubt. I know. We did.
I did leave it up to her.
Somebody else had one.
Good one.
But no, I drove around and everything, and there was nobody out, at least not driving around.
Mhm.
And I did not see anybody walking on the street. So, but yeah, you never know who could have been in the backyard.
Or smoking, walking
Smoking,
their dog.
yes, they could have been doing that.
And people report, sometimes some people can see them and other people can't. So maybe it was just for your benefit.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I
People-
think
say that.
I think this was something that was a missed opportunity, to be honest. We should have probably reported it, every time I'm on a plane, I'm always, don't give me the finger. I know. It's just not the finger, sorry. That's not quite what
Well,
she's
it is
just
the
pointing
finger.
like this. Yes. The index finger.
The index.
Okay.
Okay, Martin, move on with another story here. I'm going to really get yelled at later on here.
Oh, this isn't public.
Oh, no.
I think, I didn't report, and I could still report what I saw back in 2007. I mean, it doesn't matter. And I have looked online about the area where I was at, and there was something that sounded, very similar to what I saw. It might have been the same night. See, I don't even remember the date. I really don't even remember the time of year. California, the seasons are
But
mostly
see,
alike.
Our MUFON field investigators are so skilled at what they do that they can look up this information and they can compare it. They can see what was in the area at the time. They can tell you if there's other people that saw things that were similar to that.
Yeah. Well,
And all
someone
those
did
pieces of
report.
puzzle go into the database and help every little bit.
Yeah, someone did report seeing a cigar-shaped object. That's not what I saw. But however, as someone pointed out to me once, at an angle, a disc which I saw could look like a cigar shape, which is all interesting. And speaking of shapes, David, who's behind the camera, his mother had about a 1948 triangle UFO sighting. You don't hear too much of them, happening back then. But a lot of people talk about why now is there more triangle UFOs than ever, and what happened to the good old-fashioned discs. Does anyone want to?
The Triangle Nation took over the Disc Nation and wiped it out.
I see.
Well, I mean, from a point of view of just what people are seeing, I guess from the outside you can say, well, maybe there's more human-made things in the sky that form triangle formations, for instance, and this is meant to add to this, not subtract from this. There are certain satellites that have been put up by the Navy that travel in triplets. They're like an equilateral triangle in the sky when they move through the sky. If you see them, you might think that you're not seeing stars between the end points of these satellites because your brain mentally subtracts those sometimes. And so it might look like a solid object and you might say, oh, that's a triangle. But in 1948, they didn't have these types of things in the sky, right? So it wouldn't be that. But then again, there are other options, right? There are other possibilities. Maybe if you want to look at it from an extraterrestrial point of view, maybe there are several races that have found us.
That's kind of my point. I was
Which is what
being
Karen
funny,
was saying.
but like,
No, I know what you mean. No, you're right.
like maybe this other, planet, when they finally reached us and they like us, so they're hanging around where the disc, wherever they from, they're done with us, and they're like, eh.
Well, don't forget, people are still seeing discs.
Right, but I mean, it's like there could be thousands of different shapes.
Yeah, that's correct. And it depends on what kind of technology an advanced race might actually choose to exploit in order to ply that vast gulf between the stars. And in all cases, one of the interesting things is, people are saying that these flying saucers are actually particle accelerators, which is why they're round. And the same thing with triangles. The triangles are triangular shaped because they're particle accelerators. And a good friend of mine.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And that the whole point of these flying saucers, if you call them that, is that they exploit not a hole, but a opportunity in physics to be able to move through dimensions in a way that require the use of a particle accelerator to generate certain types of particles so you can extract yourself from our dimensional space.
There's a lot of evidence pointing towards that because people who have no idea of science describe the movements in exactly the same way, like they kind of wobble and things like that, which would make sense, from a scientific point of view.
In fact, it does, because Bob Schroeder, a friend of mine, he wrote Solving UFO Enigma. Bob.
Yeah.
Okay. Bob's a great guy, and he's not prone to flights of fancy. And Bob discusses this in his book. And that's probably one of the few books I read because it had a lot of equations in it, and not because I like equations. Okay. I'm not that much of a geek. Well, maybe I am.
Well,
yeah. But the fact, thank you. But the fact is, I want to really understand the science that he was suspecting was there. And you know what? It's sound. It's sound. And the thing that's interesting is that when you talk about alien races traveling through space, that's where you leave, most modern astrophysics people behind, because then they're like, yeah, that can't happen. The distances are so vast that they can't possibly do it. But the fact is, they're not traveling those distances. They're traveling, and it's not like wormholes, but it's like folding space.
Yeah.
We see that now. We see how to do that now. We just can't do it because we don't have the technology. So if we see that, only 5,000 years into our written history from ancient Sumeria, well, then I'm sure there's a race out there that's done it. Because if we look at the way planets are formed, that's my specialty in astronomy is exoplanets, right? So if we look at the way these planets are being formed, it's a sliding window. We see planets that are 12 billion years old. The universe is 13.8. So planets have been around for quite a while. So along that sliding window of planetary formation, there's certainly going to be an alien race that's managed to find something somewhere, to find some way to get to advancement. And they're not going to look like us. They're not going to look like us because we look exactly the way we do because of 5 major extinction events and changes in biodiversity on our planet. But that's not to say that it didn't happen another way to reach intelligence. We only know how intelligence can be reached from this planet. We don't know how it would work elsewhere.
Right.
So they could be here. I have no doubt. And they could be here from multiple places.
But also you just say that well, we're a binocular vision bipedal, and
Bilateral
quadrupeds, but I mean, there's a lot of similarities to our species on this planet.
Every species on this planet is symmetric.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're all symmetric, whether radial symmetry like a tulip or a dandelion or whatever, or bilaterally symmetric like most of the upper life forms. Starfish are odd because starfish start off as bilateral symmetric larvae and they become pentamers. They become the pentamerism organisms where it's 5-sided. Kind of a weird radial thing. All right, but still,
They've got to be alien. They might be.
I think the octopus is alien. To be honest
Yeah,
with
I
you,
know.
the octopus to me is the most intelligent animal in the ocean.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love those things.
Yeah.
I don't want them on me, but I love
Yeah.
those things. I'll watch them from a distance.
Okay.
You can play with them.
All right. I have.
Oh, really?
Scuba diving. Yeah.
Oh.
Not really. One scared the heck out of me. So would anyone here be up for talking about a personal UFO sighting they had? Well, you saw the gimbal.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that? I know you have before, but
Yeah.
we'd love to hear it again.
So, I was in the Navy. I worked in intelligence. I was in the Navy for 16 years. And I was stationed on board the Theodore Roosevelt in 2015.
You're going to have to talk a little bit louder.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. That's all right.
So I was stationed on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt in 2015. And obviously working in intel, I was kind of privy to what was happening on the ship. And so I didn't hear about it initially right away. So the night that it happened, I had gone down to bed, and I heard that they launched the alert because they announced that. And so I called up to my shop and I said, "Hey, is there anything I need to know about? Do I need to come upstairs?" And they said, "No." So the next day, I go up to my shop, and a buddy of mine from another part of the intel who works more closely with the pilots came into my shop and he said, "Hey, look at this, pull it up." So I got on my computer and I pulled up what is now the gimbal video. And that was the first time I saw it in 2015. The Go Fast video was also from the same incident, but this was an incident that went on for 4 nights. So they came back every night for 4 nights. But those two, the gimbal and the Go Fast, I believe are from 2 different nights.
Yeah. And that's what started you on your whole path to other things happen. We don't have to talk about that now, but I mean, that's what really got you involved. And I love your book, by the way. And I'm into your book a good part of the way. And throw the name of it.
It's called Initiated.
That's right. Yeah. Here I am reading it. I can't even throw the title out there.
Well, you've probably read so many.
A few. Yeah. Not as many as I should. Anyone else want to feel up to talking about a personal sighting? And if not, I have another thing to throw in. Anyone?
So I started talking to other people. Like I talked to an investigator in the academy that I went to. He saw the Hudson Valley, the boomerang. and when he's a teenager, and I'm finding everybody's got a personal interest. And I shared it with Stacey, and I've shared it here with these two, but so it was late summer of '89. And when you're talking about trying to go back and work things back, kind of had to do a little bit of that. So we're up in a cabin, Pine Mountain Lake, Groveland, and I'm an attorney general investigator for the state of California for Department of Justice. And my buddy is a homicide, I think he was in homicide at the time, he's a detective with Fremont. So we've been buddies since we're 26. We hang around together, the families. So we have both families at the cabin. And so it's just a nice place to go for the summer, and his in-laws bought it, so it's free. So we're up there, and it's basically a rectangular cabin. And on this side of the room, we have my room on one side, Bing's room, Bing was his name, on the other side of the cabin. The kids were in the front room area stacked. My daughter, about 14 at the time, my son 12, and then his son was about 3. And then on the right-hand side of the room, we have a half wall for the kitchen. In front of that, we had Kimmy's crib. Kimmy was born in May, so she's still an infant, late summer. And I just wake up in the middle of the night, and the door to my bedroom's to my left around the bed, and my wife was facing away from me, sleeping with her back to me. And I hear something, and I don't know what it is. So I wake up and I look at the doorway, and you got a little gray there. And you're having that WTF moment, because it's like the really vivid bad dream. And I look at that thing, and we're talking. Do you remember they had those really tight black, almost like a shark skin swimsuit that they were trying to during the Olympics when I think China. But anyway, I was looking at those. It's a skin tight black suit. It comes up to about the middle of his neck. And when people talk about hand stuff, I couldn't even tell you. But he's got like little pecs, little buys, the long neck, and those eyes are like big bug eyes. And there's no pupil, there's no blinking. It's like a pair of lenses. It's almost like just like their goggles. And I think it's called the Amco. It was in an advertisement, Amco Alien. It was in one of the aerospace magazines. That's probably the closest I saw to it. And his eyes are a little bit bigger on the one that I was looking at. But I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, bad dream. And then it says to me, but not verbally, telepathically, it says you can't move. And I couldn't move. And okay, I'm a copper. I don't take orders from people. I give orders. And I was thinking, I couldn't move. And then I went to move again, and it said to me, and this is in English, you can't move. And I thought, I almost kind of panicked a little bit there. It's like, shit, I can't move. And then I could hear him, they're not speaking in English, but I went, there's 2 more. I just knew there were 2 more in the front room. And I said, shit, my kids are out there. So I hit the floor. And when I hit the floor and I looked at him, I thought, I'm going to twist that big bulbous head off your skinny little neck. And he's telling me I can't move as I'm hitting the floor. And then he turns to run from me. When he goes out of the room, their syntax on their little gerbling goes up really rapid. And when he goes out of the room with me on his ass, he hits face to face with the other one. And then they take off through the front room. And this is probably not much bigger than this room here. And as they're going into the front room, I'm thinking, I'm going to tackle both these boys. And then I look, and to my right is the crib, and one of them has Kimmy. And he just looks at me. And when he looked back at me, I went after him instead of the other 2. He said he only had her an inch or 2 off the bed, crib. And he just sets her down. He starts going with those other 3. I know I'm not owning him because it's like, 10 feet to the end of the cabin. White light comes down. Bright white light. You have shadows in here. You guys can see them. But the light it started as bright light, and then it just went through everything. There's no shadows underneath. There's
And it's loud humming, and then I'm just by myself and white light, and it's loud, and then boom, it's gone, and it's like you're in a bar, and when the music's really played and the music goes and you're screaming, well, now I'm standing in the front room, but I'm looking back toward my bedroom, and my kids are on my right, and they're looking at me like, really, Dad? And they're in sleeping bags, and they're just there with their mouths open watching me, and I look at them, and I think, I thought, okay. Then I hear my buddy and his wife, they're crying, they're wailing. I thought maybe they got into a brawl. I don't know. Usually with the, coppers, if your buddy's in another room, he's going to come out. He didn't come out. So I asked him twice if he's okay. He goes, I'm fine, just go to bed. So then I thought, okay, I just embarrassed myself in front of all my friends and had a super graphic bad dream. So then at that point, Bing kind of hit me up about it, like, you can't tell people, and I go, okay, whatever. So I'm just assuming it was an embarrassing moment for me. So my son was 12. He goes in the Navy. He was AZ, and he comes home on leave. He's 18. He goes, can I ask you a question? I go, what's that? And he goes, when those little gray guys came in the cabin, how come we never talked about that? And I go, you saw them too? He goes, well, I saw the big bolt of light that hit you. And, but he said, Sis has gone to counseling and everything else. She saw him, Mom saw him, but she was playing possum because they scared her. And Bing would still not talk to me about it. So then putting all that together, I was trying to think. So Bing later, just before he died, we're on the beach down in San Diego. I was down there for half marathon. He was down there for his newest grandbaby. So we're on the beach, something zipped by, and I giggled, and he goes, I go, you don't remember any of that. He goes, I remember all of it, but you can't tell people about this. Our job's about credibility. And I'm like, we're retired. He goes, I don't care. So so then Jeannie said, his wife says, all I remember is sitting on the side of the bed crying with a big bright white light, a landing light over me. That's all I remember. So so when it comes to memories, that's why I read that book, Forbidden Questions. I've read books since, I can't tell you how many books I read on this thing for many years. And I was trying to sort out with the regression. I like Yvonne Smith, watching videos. And because I was a copper for, 25 years, and I kind of read people, or I kind of wait and let it settle in. I kind of liked talking to her. But then again, I talked to my daughter. I said, do you want to do something like that? And she goes, I remember parts of it, but if I don't remember all of it, my brain knows what's best for me. I don't want to deal with it anymore. And I don't want to do something like that. So then I tried to sort it out. So there, my this is my first wife. Her father was Minuteman missile. He did patent advising, mechanical drawing. He's a high-end little guy. And then Bing's family, Bing's half Cherokee. He's a 300-pound guy. He's good for backup when he comes charging it, it's going to happen. So I'm thinking, I know from reading, they say they follow families. So as they follow families, I'm thinking, well, maybe it's my wife's side of the family because of the Minuteman missile, and kids are extremely bright. And then maybe it's Bing's side because he's American Indian, and he seemed to want to just kiss it right off. So I don't know, but that's what got me interested. Yeah.
Great. By the way, I don't think we're supposed to say the word shit.
Oh, excuse me.
That's okay. Oh, did I just say that? No. All right. Sorry. All right. So we're going into break. For those of you over at KGRA Radio, we have about a 4-minute break. For those of you watching, check out this clip on the boot camp going right now. Hang in there. We'll be right back.
What not to do. Very, very, very important. Do not be biased, okay? Don't go in an interview and think, oh, this guy or this gal, This is gonna be kind of a nutcase. I'm just gonna go do what I have to do and not even pay attention to it because this is gonna be far-fetched. This is gonna be real. Don't be biased on that person. Stay impartial. Everybody's equal.
Suggestibility. There are a lot of people, and there are some mental illnesses that really increase this, are highly suggestible, meaning that they're impressionable. They'll take other people's viewpoints into consideration, and sometimes even to the point of countering their own memory of an event. And then bias. This is basically after the fact, incorporating new feelings, new information, and kind of coloring and changing your memory based on things that happened.
If it costs money, it's worth it. You know why? Because it does augmented reality, pull it up, and there's others that do this. But this one is better. And the reason is because, because this is what it looks like when you zoom in on, say, Orion, okay? You see everything that's in that constellation, information, okay? And you can even subscribe to something called supermassive, which allows you to zoom in to the Orion Nebula so far that it's just a pink haze. You're so close, you can see everything. So.
And in the desert, you can step on any piece of ground. You're always going to leave some evidence of your passing that area. It could be just a pebble that's pushed into the ground a little deeper than the rest of them. Could be a whole footprint or even a heel mark. It might be something really, really small, but you have to be aware of them. And in the case of hoaxes, this is going to come to the forefront. If you go around and you see this evidence, but you see footprints around everything, you're going to start to wonder, is this stuff planted here? You know, are they trying to make a fool out of me? Or are they trying to gain some kind of notoriety or attention?
Stand by, Martin. Coming back in 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, everyone, welcome back. This is Martin Willis, and we are on location in Mesa. That's how you say it, right? Did I
Yes,
say it right?
you got it.
All right. So again, we're going to be taking calls in another half hour, and that was quite an amazing story you told there. And I wondered if anyone else had anything they'd like to share and UFO sighting experiences.
Yeah, I know that, you know, I'm a science guy, right? So I always say, it's a sort of a standard line, you know, these things don't happen to me, right? But when they do, what do you do with that? You know, and so I've had things happen that I can't explain. Things that are so far outside of my understanding and the understanding of anybody that you just have to say, this happened, there it is, I don't know what to do with it, you know. And I had 3 nights of terror, which actually caused me to move out of my old house, where I kept hearing something knocking, you know, dun 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 on my ceiling, in a second floor of a dormant cape. And the end result was, there was, on the 3rd night of that, I woke up and it was 3:15 a.m. each and every night, every morning, I should say, 3:15. And I look at the clock, it's 3:15. Why am I awake again? Bum, 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 bum. What's going on? My dogs were looking at it, okay? They had greyhounds, Tycho and Kepler, right? Astronomers' dogs, they always say. And so they're looking at this too. And, to shorten that down to, digestible, bottom line was on the third night, I woke up again. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. And as I woke up, I'm sitting there and I go to look. It's an August night. It's dark. The window I could see it was peripheral vision. I could see the light outside the window, the street light in the distance, vaguely illuminates the window frame. And I just went to look at it, and I got this really sharp pain in my eyes. I couldn't move my head. And when I went to look with my eyes, I couldn't move my eyes. My eyes wouldn't move. I couldn't do this. They wouldn't work. And I thought, whoa, what's going on here? And then I saw it. This object passed in front of the window, and it looked like it had some kind of more vertical than horizontal form. Okay, it was taller than it was wide. And then it starts coming right toward me. And it's got what looks like a magic wand, a magician's wand, right? It was this long thing that was clear, semi-clear, and glowing soft white. And I couldn't look at it because I was fixed like this. My eyes were like this, so I only see everything in the peripheral vision. I couldn't look at it. So it comes over here and it starts going back and forth in front of my face, and then pow, it's morning, and I can't breathe. And
Let me just. So it sounded like when we first started talking about this that it was outside. Was this inside your home?
It was inside.
Inside your home.
Yeah.
The window was illuminating the figure.
The window was, he passed in front of the window inside my house. So I saw something pass in front of the window.
I got it.
And I was in bed, at least I thought. But then it came toward me as if the bed wasn't there. And I've always said, could it be a wacky dream? Well, maybe. But the problem with that is as follows. When I woke up in the morning, I pushed off the pillow because I couldn't breathe. And I was lying in a pool of my own blood. Who sleeps with their face straight down on a pillow? Nobody. You sleep on your side or on your back or whatever. But I was straight down and making this concave hole. I had been bleeding into it and then trying to inhale my own blood. So that's what made me wake up. So I realized that, and I was like, holy cow. And this was after 3 nights of hearing the sound and weird stuff going on. So then I got up, felt like I'd been slammed in the face, couldn't breathe out of this side right away, right from that very point. And I did what anyone who suffers such a traumatic thing does. I immediately forgot about it, took a shower, and went to work. Right? Well, it took me 4 years of full blockage on this side before I went to a surgeon. And the surgeon looked up in there and he said, holy cow, he says, you've got something huge up there. Really? Yeah. So he said, I think I can get it out. And he pulled it through this little tiny nostril. It was like 2 thumbs in size. Okay, which was, that's gross, isn't it? It's just, well, and it was like, now we say this like Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger pulling that ball out. I can get it out. And he pulls this thing out, right? And it just feels that the nostril just stretches and it pops out, Well, that's how it felt. Okay, it was gross. Well, anyway, I asked him a question. I said, I'm just curious, could those things seed around a foreign object? And he said, you mean like a metal splinter a machinist might get? I go, yes. He said, sure. Why do you ask? And idiot here, that's me, told him the story I just sort of told you. And he laughs. He goes, I'm sure it's not aliens. And I really was kind of surprised that he jumped to that conclusion. I said, no, of course not. I wouldn't think that. Well, I did. I wasn't sure. And then a week later, he said, call me. I'll give you the results. So I call him. And I say, and they answer the phone. I say, hi, this is Marc D'Antonio. Oh, hold on. The doctor has to talk to you. I'm like, oh, no, it's like head cancer or something. My head's going to fall off, He gets on the phone. Hey, Mr. D'Antonio, just want to let you know, I'm sure it's benign. Oh, I said, so you didn't get the results yet? And it's like he's not
Crickets?
answering.
Was that a cricket?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm saying, why is he not answering? And I said, what, did you not get the results yet? And he goes, this has not happened in 40 years of practice. They always say that. Why me? Why does it be 40 years of practice and then me? And he goes, But we sent it to pathology. They signed for it, and now they can't find it. Oh. He goes, but it's benign. And I just said, okay, no problem. Thanks, doc. Hung up. 4 years later, I go back to him for something else. And this time I put on my intake form. I do special projects for the Navy. Okay. And when he comes into the room, he says, oh, special project for the Navy, huh? He goes, I just gave up my top secret clearance this year. What? I said, what are you operating on top secret nasal things? And he laughs. No. He goes, I wasn't always a surgeon. And he proceeded to tell me about his involvement in a project which he didn't give me the name, but which I deduced to be Project Starfish. Now, do you know about Project Starfish? Have you heard of it? It's the one where they sent a nuclear weapon up into the ionosphere to ostensibly study what happens when a nuclear weapon explodes in the upper ionosphere. But he laughed when I said that, okay, to him, when he said it to me. And I said, that sounds like Project Starfish. I mean, that project lit up Honolulu for a split second when they set it off. And it was 1,600 miles away. And he goes, uh-huh. He goes, well, it wasn't to test a nuke. It was to take down a satellite, which they did. And he said it was successful. And he was responsible for some major part of that. And he held on to his clearance for decades and was a consultant. So he had just given it up that year. And now I know exactly what happened. Well, almost everybody listening knows exactly what happened. When you have a clearance, you have to report anything that may jeopardize national security to you, whoever you communicate with, okay? And so you have to say, yes, this happened, and so had this happen, and maybe you might be interested in this. I know how the conversation went. I could just feel it. He probably called whoever he talks to, whoever his local person is for intelligence, and he says, yeah, I had a patient who said this weird thing happened to him. You know, it is a strange object, but I don't know if I believe him. Okay, what's the patient's name? Where hospital? And where's it located? There's where it's located. And that's why it went away. And now you see that doctor has plausible deniability under a polygraph, which I've had many of. Okay, under a polygraph exam, he would not be telling a lie if he said he didn't know where it went. He'd be truthful. He wouldn't be deceptive. So you see, they cover all along the way. They have those little outs for people who are in this. And so he's out. He has no knowledge of where it went. He sent it down to pathology, and it wasn't there a week later.
Now, was that tapping happening upstairs at the same time that the door opened? You talked about that story. I don't know if you want to talk about that story or not. Like you went and you looked and the attic door was open.
Well, that's a very different event. That was this. Now we're talking about familial things, right? Where you have families involved.
Yeah. So you don't really want to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Okay, it was 2 a.m. and I woke up because I heard little feet in my attic. It sounded like my youngest son walking around the attic. Okay, and you could follow with your ears. You could follow the sound across the attic floor, and then you could hear the grinding as he turned the ball of his foot and went a different direction. And he's moving around like little pitter patter. It wasn't like a drum. It was like drum, 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 drum. And you could actually feel it, hear it. Okay. So I said, what are my kids doing in the attic? So I went into their room, turned on their light, ready to find out that one of my kids was up in the attic, which is hard to get to, by the way. And they were both asleep. Uh-oh, there's somebody in my attic. This is a carriage house style house. That would constitute the 4th floor, okay, up in the attic. And to get there, you got to climb a steep ladder, take a giant heavy wood door off to go into this space, which you can put your head, stand up in. So I immediately called the police, and I told them what I'm experiencing, and they know the kind of work I was doing for the Navy. So as soon as I hung up, you see blue lights on the horizon through the window. So they're already coming. I told them silent approach because I don't know who's up there. And they got here, and it was a male and a female police officer. And they walked in the house, and I greet them and come upstairs. And now we're standing in the room, looking at this ladder, going up to the door to the attic, which is closed. Okay. And the male officer looks at the female officer, looks at me and says, well, seems okay. And I went, yeah, I think it's okay. And they left. Not one of us decided to go up into the attic to investigate the sound. and that made no sense to me, right? Now, the following morning, I get up and I'm hearing noise up there again. I go, what is going on? I go around the corner. I see that my youngest son is not in his bed. I go around the corner into the room. I look up the stairs. The door is open. I run up there and he's on the floor, sitting there. I go, Hunter, what are you doing in here? He goes, I don't know. And I was like, whoa. So what? So that's the son who said that he had a weird encounter. That's why he was sleeping in the bed, in our
And
bed.
there's no way that he could have lifted that heavy door out of the way to get in there.
Nah, I think he could have. That's the thing. I think he could have, but I don't know that he knows why he went there. You know, and he won't talk about it, by the way. He's 23 now. He won't talk about this. You know, so that it follows family around, I think. You know, but I respect his privacy and not telling other stories that's happened to him, because that's just really, crazy. You know,
It's funny, you have such detailed, long, the most amazing stories I've ever heard.
Well,
Where most of us have had UFO sightings, and the weird thing about them is that they're just so quick.
Right.
They're like this, that you almost doubt, like, what was that? Because I've had a sighting that literally lasted probably 1.5 seconds.
yeah.
In the daylight, going down the street, and then all of a sudden I saw something falling out of the sky. Like it looked exactly like a disc, a shiny disc, going like that. You know how it would go end over end?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I thought it was gonna crash. I mean, it was not that far, and there was like a whole, row, or the street was full of traffic, and I was like, I saw it, and I'm, oh my God, and then I thought it was gonna crash, and then it was gone. It was like you could see it for about 3 rotations and nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was so quick. And I'm looking around at the other cars to see if anyone else was looking. It doesn't seem like anyone did, but things happen like that. And it's
Yeah, but
what
see,
do you do with it?
See, that's the thing, though. See, that's a quick thing. If something is distended and drawn out, you tend to remember.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're already a good observer, like I was always a good observer, always situationally aware. I always knew what's going on around me, and we call it social radar. Maybe that comes from martial arts background. I don't know what you want to call it, but it does come from having some kind of awareness at all times. So I was always a good observer that way, and I think that's very important. Everybody should be, But if it was quick, I think I would have had the same observation as you.
And I just recently remembered a UFO sighting that's just so mundane that you don't even think about it as a UFO sighting. It was like in 5th grade, we were on the playground, and people were going, there's a UFO, and so we were all trying to see it. It was just like, I would probably call it a cigar shape. It was a dark, elongated object in the sky. And we were all just looking. It was just sitting there far away, but you could see it. And normally there's not anything dark in the sky you can see in the day. And then I just remember going after school, looking at it, and it was still there. And and then that was it, Next day it wasn't there, and we all kind of talked about it, but just weird little things that you can forget because it wasn't, an amazing thing. But I mean, that just came to me not that long ago.
Wow. Well, see,
At a playground, that just a dark object, and I was like, well, I don't know, that just not much to it, but.
And what
see,
city?
5th grade.
That was in Belton, Missouri.
And what year was this?
Dang, I don't know, 5th grade.
Interesting.
You're asking her what her age is.
No, I don't mind telling my age, but I can't do math that quick. But I don't know, I was born in 63, so how old are you in 5th grade?
10. About 10.
73-ish, 70, something in the 70s.
See, that's funny because,
Did you report to Mufon?
I did. I didn't even know there was I didn't know, this is the funny thing, I did not know there was Mufon,
Oh, of course.
or any UFO groups.
Sure, of course.
Until 2011, and
Yeah.
I didn't know there was
Yeah.
groups, I didn't know there was conferences.
Yeah.
Yeah, until
Well,
2011.
I joined Mufon when 2 years after it was founded in 1971.
That's so crazy.
I was 11 years old.
11.
I mean, back then, there's no internet. You would have had to go to a store.
I went
get
to a store. I
magazine,
saw a little
go in the
thing.
back of the magazine. Cut it out.
Not that. It was actually a little thing on the wall that said "Join MUFON today." It was Midwest UFO Group. Okay, it wasn't Mutual UFO Network. It was Midwest UFO Network or something.
Have you paid all your dues?
No. But I did have my field investigator badge from when I was 11 years old. I'd carried my wallet. Every single new wallet, I would transfer it. And I dropped that wallet in the water about 7 years ago. And when I pulled it out, I said, oh, good, my MUFON ID is still in there. I could care less about the money that's all wet now and everything, but that was there. So I just made sure that the money dried out, and I didn't do anything with that. When I looked in that transparent little pouch, it had long since dissolved, and all that was an imprint on the plastic of my ID. I was like, oh no, it's gone. It's been gone for years. You mentioned that see the thing in 5th grade? I think kids have these things too. I was in 6th grade, and we were going on a field trip to a pond. You might know the story, and I didn't know what missing time was until it happened to me. I remember, I've said this before, I got on the bus with my little bag lunch, my little shorts. It was like June. I was holding it like this, all excited, getting the bus, making little sounds with your, cheeks on the vinyl seat, And then I remember getting off the bus at the pond where we were going. And then all of a sudden I remember getting on the bus again with my lunch still in my hand, not eaten. And I remember asking, why are we going back? And when are we going to go to the pond? And they were saying, you idiot, because kids are so, nice to you. You idiot, we've been here all day. You're stupid, you dumbass. Sorry about the words.
That's all right.
But anyway, so I didn't know what was wrong. I thought, well, how did I miss it? Well, anyway, I got home. Kids, they just pass it off. I want to just play now. So I'm playing out in the empty lot next to my house. And I remember feeling weird. And I remember falling to the ground. And I remember having seizures and convulsions. I remember my body unconsciously going into these contortions that I couldn't control. And I remember distinctly whacking my head on the sand and feeling the sand grind against my forehead and seeing little red ants moving around. And while this is all happening, all I'm thinking is, oh, cool, ants. I'm not thinking anything about my well-being, right? So obviously they called the ambulance. I go to the hospital in the ambulance. And while in the ambulance, I say to the guys, which was actually a police car station wagon back then with a gumball on top, okay? I said, can you run the siren?
How old are you?
I was like 9.
Just kidding. Yeah.
I was 9 then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you know how old I am. I'm 61. Yeah.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, so I get to the hospital, and the doctors see this big lump on my forehead, and they say, oh, did you fall? I said, yeah, I fell on a dock at the pond. There's no docks at the pond to this day. But I was lying because I wanted to get the heck out of there. So they said, the doctor said, oh, my parents, he just had a concussion. Just take him home, let him rest. He'll be okay. So all they did was just wipe out the sand that was still embedded in my forehead. And they brought me home. And my mother's like, well, you're going to have to rest now. All right. I'm like, all right. That was a better way out than, whatever else could have waited for me. I didn't know what I was going to get for. So anyway, that was a strange event. And I remember that because it was a extended period of time over which this happened, So, again, you got to be a good observer, right?
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah,
this stuff.
definitely they've targeted you, Mark.
Not at all.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
I just remember. I think I just remember things that maybe other people don't remember. Maybe I remember things differently.
I don't think most of us have had aliens.
Don't forget,
Aliens,
yeah.
get them in our notes, but
Maybe you have.
maybe
Yeah.
you, but
Maybe.
Does anyone else have had an experiences or experience they want to talk about at this point?
You saw some amazing aircraft over the right
Come
below
on,
the
here.
Laguna Rim here in Arizona, right?
I did. It was before I knew anything about Mufon or anything. I was taking pictures off the rim, and if anybody's ever been on the Laguna Rim in Arizona, it's just beautiful. You're way above the landscape, and you just have these vast mountains that just go forever. It's just beautiful, and so I had just gone in. We have a cabin up there, and we always stop at these lookout points because it's just so beautiful. But I take millions of pictures, and I had taken some pictures, and I just did a snap one direction, one in the center, and one on the side. And later, when I looked back at those pictures, which I don't have anymore, of course, but I saw the first picture way out. It's in the air, off the rim, way to the left side, a little tiny ball, and you can see a reflection.
Camera unplugged.
And in the second picture, right in front of me, off the rim, probably maybe 30 feet, was this ball. I would estimate to be about as big as a basketball or so, but it was metallic. And it had like a, I would say, battleship gray color, but there were, you could tell it was manufactured somehow because there were.
Hold just 1 second.
Mhm.
We'll be.
Do you know exactly where you are?
All right. Sorry about that, everyone. We are back. And thank you for your patience. Bill, I'm not sure if you jumped in or not, but thank you, everyone, for your patience. We just had a little technical difficulty. And
It would have been neat if we were all disheveled, our hair was gone, our shirts were all screwed up. What happened?
We can't talk about it.
What happened? Who stuck something in my ear?
Or they just want to be part of the show, that's all.
yeah. So we are back. Thank you so much for your patience again, everyone. And I think what I'm going to do,
Jennifer had a story too that she wanted.
Oh, okay.
But
All right. Yeah. No, that's what I want to know. You were in the middle of your story. Do you want to cap that off?
Absolutely. It was just a big, looked like a metallic ball that I saw hovering off of the Mogollon Rim in Arizona. And I can't explain it as a field investigator. I have no idea what it was. So
But you didn't see it at the time.
I did not see it. It was in my pictures when I looked back.
That's a
later.
common response. I didn't see it at the time.
And it was big enough for me to have seen. So.
Unless it was moving through.
Shane had something that was out there in the overlook over Jerome, and it was only in 5 frames, and they're 1/30th of a second. And that thing was crystal clear. And then when I was doing the Mufon booth in Pine Top, one of the Indian girls came over to me. She said, I saw something over by 7 Mile Mountain, but it was so quick. She goes, I'm not sure if I saw it or not. And so I don't know if that's uncommon, but you try to listen when people talk. So
What you had something you were saying before.
Yeah, I don't really see craft so much, which is saying something living in Tucson, because there's a lot of activity there. But this particular one of many experience happened June 29th, 2016. I work in the oil industry, and I work for a contractor that goes to refineries with repairs and to get them to EPA standards. So I get sent out to the middle of nowhere. This trip was I was leaving Tucson to go to Rawlins, Wyoming, and there was a famous abduction there by a hunter, I think in 1974. I can't remember the fellow's name, but that was an interesting story. So I leave at night, and I stop in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, which is 4.5 hours away from Tucson. Creepy name anyway, right?
Yeah.
Very creepy.
I always love that.
Yeah. So I'm always listening to my music. I'm always by myself, and I get lost, not paying attention, but I knew I needed to pull over to get fuel. So I exit. And also, this is important, I didn't get a regular phone like normal people until 2018. I had a flip phone at the time, and I miss it very much. So I still use regular maps. I didn't have any internet, nothing. I had a regular map, and I also keep a compass, just a regular basic compass in my car at all times. That's a tip to everybody. That's a good way to see if maybe there's a craft hanging around if it starts spinning. So always just keep a compass nearby. So I go to leave, I fuel up, and then the freeway's gone. Just gone. Okay, well, maybe I drove down further than what I thought. So I start driving the only road. I'm going and going. I said, I didn't go this far off the exit. What's this? So I just kept going, and all of a sudden I saw this enormous fair. These traveling fairs with all the bright lights, like the one we saw that was here this weekend. Really pretty. I said, it's 12:30 at night. What the heck is this fair doing? All the rides were moving, going. Nobody was there. It's okay. So, all right, well, maybe they're just running them to get the oil out or something, excess oil for whatever. So I wanted to take a picture, and I had a regular camera on the floorboard of the passenger side, and I must have been down 30 times to try to grab my camera to take a picture. I couldn't do it. I got so angry, I could not pick the camera up. So
like physically,
I could not pick it up. I backed it at least 30 times. Then I got angry. I drove off. And about a mile later, I slammed the brakes and I said, I'm going to get a picture. I went back, same thing. I couldn't pick it up at all. So
But it was still there.
It was still there, but I just couldn't, my fingers would not wrap around the camera to pick it up. So then I just gave up. So I'm driving still, and then I saw a street to the left. Finally, a street, because I looked on the map, and oh yes, I forgot. The compass was spinning like crazy. And there was no lights. I saw nobody. So I took that street to the left, and then I went to a trailer park, a decent kind of trailer park. And there were cars and all the parking, the garage, and then some lights were on. I got lost in that trailer park for 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. I could not get out of it. I couldn't get out of it. Then I pulled over and I realized, okay, something is not quite right here. I realized it. I wasn't afraid, but I got really angry, like red hot anger, super, super angry. And to the point where you just blood red and then you get teary-eyed because you're so angry. And then there was the freeway. And then the rest of the journey up to Rollins, because it was in the middle of the night, it just went on and on. It wouldn't end. I didn't see another person for 12 hours. Not one person. Not one
Sounds
car.
like a Stephen King novel.
Yeah, it was creepy.
Yeah.
It was creepy.
Did you notice at the time whether everything seemed to be in the present?
It was, yeah, I didn't lose any time or anything like that. I was aware of all of it. I couldn't get out. There was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to go. Well, in 2019 at Contact in the Desert, I was lucky enough to have a drink with Whitley Strieber. So I told him the experience, and he looked at me with these sad eyes and says, Jennifer, that was a screen memory. The fair was a screen memory. I felt so stupid. I said, yeah, that could have been what it was. He's also sorry for me. You didn't realize that? And when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize these things. You just don't think about it. And you know what a screen memory is.
And the 2.5 hours in the trailer park.
In the trailer park, I don't know what that was about.
Could have been another screen memory.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's something I've been wondering whether that's something that my older son experienced too. Because he was with a girl and he was driving in his Jeep, coming back from a place where they were out somewhere. On the way back, they come up to a roadblock, a police roadblock, state police roadblock. And he noticed that the cars were like old cars with the gumball on top instead of the light bar.
But were there a lot of lights going on at the same time?
Yeah, a lot of red and blue lights. And he said there were fire trucks coming. He
Okay.
counted 4 trucks with a 5th one coming. And they had these big lights and they're looking into the woods and he's thinking it was a plane crash or something. But the trucks looked like they were old. Like they should be in a parade.
Kind of like a Men in Black, how they just don't really realize, kind of dated.
Yeah,
they're not sure.
exactly.
Maybe people, this is a fire truck, but they don't really know what age it is.
So the state trooper tells them to go down this side street, okay, to avoid whatever it was they wanted to avoid. So they do, and the road's dirt. And he's like, geez, that's a dirt road. And he's driving down this dirt road, okay. He gets to the end, he turns left. Then he takes his next left, and then another left, back onto the same road they were on originally. And they're like, oh no, we're going to go by this roadblock again. Well, they get to exactly that street where the roadblock was, and there's nothing there. Nothing there. The girl was with him, started to cry because she was now really freaked out. And my son calls me and says, Dad, I don't know what's going on. There's something weird that's happened. He takes her to her house. The father sits down with him and goes into Google Earth, show me where you were, what happened, blah, blah, blah. And they go through the whole thing. They recount it. And they go back in the history of the Google Earth, and that road that they turned down that he said was dirt, as far as Google Earth is concerned, was always paved. It was never dirt road, not at least in the time through which that was. So it's amazing that it's almost like there was some kind of time shift.
They slipped into another dimension.
Or it was a screen memory.
I think anything with a
something
lot of
more-
lights, usually,
Something,
when a craft is involved.
yeah, something more malevolent and or, I mean, look, hey, what do we do when we go to study elk in the Yukon? We hide behind a blind, we photograph with cameras, we shoot them with darts, right? Now, from the elk's point of view, what are they going to say? Holy crap, Mabel, I got oh, and he falls down on the ground. Next, he wakes up with this big thing around his neck. There's no idea where it came from, you know? So, and like the radio collar. So, who's to say that we tagging elk in the same way isn't
Right.
what they're doing
It's
to
the
us, but more
galactic-
advanced,
It's the galactic fish and game.
right? Right?
They catch us, tag us, and monitor us. They
That's
come back
right.
Later, catch us, tag us, and monitor us.
We're a giant-
Take samples.
Well, we're a giant, well, I guess a fishery would be a humanry. We're a giant humanry, you know?
Oh, we lost our camera again. And you know what? I'm not going to panic over that right now. I'm just going to keep going. And you know we're all here, so I opened up the line. If anyone would like to call in, that number's 855-472-5600. 5483. And let's see. I'm going to just continue. The only thing I can really do here is open up my laptop camera, which I suppose I could do. And it's going to be a little bit tricky.
Well,
Yeah, why don't you try that camera and see what happens. Go ahead and plug that one in. Or go right up tight, if you would. Remove that extension, because I've never had any trouble before. Remove the extension, just come forward much more and plug directly into this USB right here. All right, so while we're doing this and trying to get the camera up, does anyone else want to talk about any type of experience? Anyone here? All right, here's the next question. I was waiting for that to happen. The next question is does anyone want to talk about how they had gotten an interest in this topic, in this UFO topic? What caused them?
I would love to.
All right.
Back in 2014, my late husband went to his first ever International UFO Congress that was held in Scottsdale at the Weeklepop. And he called me, I was on duty, and he called me and said, can I go to this? I says, hey, knock yourself out, have a great time. I was never someone that wanted to, I've never watched UFO movies. Yes, I've never seen Star Wars or, Star Trek movies. I'm sorry, folks, I apologize, don't yell at me. But I told my husband, go, have a great time. Yes, do I believe that there are other universes, there's other people out there, there's other civilizations? Yes, you have to be pretty darn, with all due respect, stupid not to think that there's other worlds out there. We're not the only ones. So fast forward a few months later, my husband found Mufon and spoke to Stacey Wright and for Phoenix Mufon, and he started going to meetings. He invited me to go to one of the meetings with him. He says, please just come, just see what I am part of. I said, okay, fine, whatever. All right, I'll be honest, I was expecting tinfoil hats. I was expecting some weird people. I'm a cop. I'm used to, when it comes to UFOs, it's kind of a weird thing. You don't expect wonderful people. So I went to the meeting, met Stacey, met a bunch of people from Phoenix Mufon, and our speaker that day was Kathleen Martin. And I'm like, holy cow, what a perfect speaker. She is just the neatest lady. But again, as a cop, what am I doing? I'm looking for deception. I'm thinking she's just going to tell some outlandish story and it's just going to be, a myth or just a story. And she told us about Betty and Barney Hill, her aunt and uncle, and I never saw 1 ounce of deception. She was an amazing woman. Fast forward the end of 2014, November, we were having Travis Walton's Skyfire Summit up in Heber Overgard.
Okay.
And Stacey asked, hey, we've got a few speakers coming in. They're going to stay in Phoenix for a couple of days. Then we're going to go back up to Heber. And she goes, would you be able to house these folks and until the next day? I said, sure. Who are we going to house? Well, Peter Robbins, Richard Dolan, Stanton Friedman. And I'm like, first of all, I did say, who are they?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, sure.
oh boy. I got a huge lecture from Stacey, and she also said, don't ever ask that question again. That day in November of 2014 totally changed my life. I've never experienced such wonderful people. I learned a lot. Met Karen and Alejandro, and it was so wonderful. So I went from not knowing anything beginning of 2014 to basically just walking into the middle of it by the beginning of 2015, and now field investigator, Mufon, being part of the UFO Congress, and just knowing so many awesome, wonderful people. So
Great story.
yeah, that's
Thank
how
you.
I got into it.
Awesome. Anyone else want to talk about how they got interested in the topic?
X-Files.
What's that? X-Files.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that? You can speak. You can speak.
The blurred.
Yeah, yeah. It's a self-adjusting. So the line is open. That's 855-472-5483.
I guess I could tell you about how I got into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been interested.
Why don't you turn around, back around? Just keep panning around, see if it'll adjust. Go ahead, yeah.
I've always, since I was a kid, been interested in the subject, and I would get books when I could. There wasn't a ton of books back then, especially for kids. But I actually saw Stanton Friedman when I was in San Diego. I was married with kids, but somehow happened to see this in the newspaper, and I got in the car and drove to San Diego State University and heard him do a lecture there. And I didn't realize it until later that when I saw him, I thought, oh, that was the guy that I saw in San Diego. I didn't know he was a big deal or anything. I just thought he was some guy that talked about UFOs, and very interesting. But for some reason, this event that I'm about to tell you, it was what triggered me to get really, really super obsessed with UFOs. And it was the Dome of the Rock UFO, because it was on the news and stuff. And I spent like 24 hours on the internet, just like scouring everything I could find. And then, for a week afterward, there was more things coming, being released. There were several videos, and I was like analyzing them like second by second, because there was one where there was a flash and you could see, like, I was trying to see how much of the city that it lit up. If you've never seen it, I don't even know if it's on the internet anymore, but turns out, like Alejandro said, it's definitely a hoax by some guys in Israel that, did film something.
College thing or something.
But it was just something about it just triggered this entrance like crazy. And I saw that there was going to be this conference in Phoenix, the International UFO Congress. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know UFO conferences existed, and by the time I was in my 40s. Yeah, and then what? Not even 10 years later, I'm running the dang thing. But
see, Karen, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because you had a predilection for it. Otherwise, you just would have dismissed it, okay, but you were interested in it.
Yeah.
The reason you were interested in it is because something has probably happened in your past that you still probably don't know or still haven't recalled.
Yeah, that is kind of a weird thing, too, because I've never gotten regrets to this day, even though it's something that I think about. Like,
Me either, and I don't know if
I think I should do that, or I should do that sometime, but I never have. Like, what is it about me that am I avoiding it? Or what? I don't know. But, yeah.
Maybe we're happy not knowing.
Yeah. I don't know, but I mean, it was kind of cool because I read all these books in that 2-month period between January, or actually only a month until the conference, and all the people that I was reading their books were there. Like, and it was just a coincidence. I had read John Alexander's book; he was there. I read Dolan's book; he was there. Leslie Kane's book, and she was there. It was just like.
Well, I'm glad you brought this whole story up, because I want to ask you this, because a lot of times I get really angry at hoaxes, because I feel as though they turn a lot of people away from looking into this topic. But in this particular case, that still made you interested.
I don't know. There's something weird about that thing, because I even found the footage from a completely different angle that showed the light, the bright, when it like flashed and shot up, and it lit up the surrounding area. So I don't know how they did this. Like, how did I guess just very good hoaxers, but it really did occupy a lot of my time for that week or so.
I do a lot of CG work too, with computer generated graphics, and the way you make something light up like that is actually very straightforward. You don't light up the actual buildings, you light up what's called a stand-in object, something that's shaped like them, that's actually something you built. So if someone's doing that, okay, I feel that was a hoax. And I know I saw 3 different angles. And what I discovered in that was that all 3 showed a different craft, yet it was supposed to be the same craft. And that bothered me from the very beginning. So I started to analyze it and figured out that the light that was striking the buildings in a city that never sleeps should have had many more reports than there were. Why would you only get 3 people reporting this, supposedly from different vantage points, in the course of an evening when the city is lit up already because there's so many people out? There would have been hundreds and hundreds of reports that night, especially in the Dome of the Rock. the
It was
most
a cool
religious
picture. It was
symbol
cool.
in the whole, right?
Yeah, I mean, if that was real, I was just like, this is the most incredible thing ever happened, you know, and
No,
why
but
didn't anyone,
see-
and, you know, I was just like, whoo.
But I believe that you were intrigued by it, probably because you've been intrigued by something that maybe happened to you some point in the past. And so you were already leaning toward that to begin with. So that might have been a hoax, but something else that's buried inside your head wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's what drew you to this.
And
And
I
that's
do
scary.
have
That's
this
my feeling.
other weird thing that it's kind of hard to explain, but I remember, not like looking back, I remember from this time on. No, I remember from this point in my life, I moved around a lot. My dad was in the Air Force. But I remember almost coming alive, in a sense, when we pulled into the driveway of my new home, and I guess I was sleeping, I don't know, and I woke up, and I remember thinking, where the heck am I? And I don't remember anything before this day. Like then, not now, then.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 5, or not even 5, 4, thinking, I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. I don't know anything before this day. And then that was it. And then like I went on with my life and everything, but
That is about the
that's
age.
really weird.
That is about the age though.
Like
where
maybe
we
I
start to
don't know if it
form
was
memories.
trauma or what. Like
Maybe.
when I got to this new home, like I became aware or something.
Yeah.
I think she might be a hybrid.
It's your dad being in the Air Force.
Yeah, I don't know. They were
Yeah.
doing experiments. on
Hey,
me.
Matthew, I'd like to hear some more about your stories. What was your duty in the Navy? What were you doing? What was your job?
So I was a cryptologist, and that's basically just. So I worked in COMET, which is communications intelligence, and that's about.
So like you try and interpret if there's any secret messages happening in communications from other or how does that
Well,
work?
I mean, that's about all I can say about
Oh.
it.
You're read in, you can't tell.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I did, and I of course I talk about in the book how I ended my career at the Office of Naval Intelligence in 2020.
So you were one of the very first people to see the gimbal. You saw footage of this from just the previous day?
Yeah, I think it was the previous day or day or two, maybe. Yeah.
And the person that showed it to you was a person who saw it before you? Maybe he
Yeah.
was not supposed to show it to you, or?
I don't know that he wasn't supposed
Was it
to
all
show
part of
it
the
to me,
job?
but it
Yeah.
was
Because maybe by that time you hadn't even been briefed. No one told them not to say anything by then.
right.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
And I don't think anybody was ever told don't say anything. I mean, but I think it was just clear that you have a clearance, so it's not something you're going to talk about. So it was not something that I spoke of at all.
And what kind of impression did that make on you when you saw that?
When I saw it, I mean, it was kind of like a gut punch, really, because you have this idea of what ufology is and what those people are like, and of course, I didn't know anyone who was in that field or anything like that, so I kind of imagined it as this like circus of tinfoil hats, of course. It's not like that, but so it was like, here it is. I'm watching this footage now inside a skiff. This is government footage, so I know it's real. I know this isn't faked, And so I had a very kind of emotional reaction to it. I was unable to eat for a few days because it was just like, oh, all this is real, and I didn't know that.
So was everyone on board talking about this, or was it
No.
real hush hush?
No, I mean, I think most people on the ship didn't know anything was happening, unless you worked for the air wing or you worked in intel. This wasn't something you knew about.
And did you ask to go back and see that footage again? And again? And
Yeah,
again?
it was on our secure network, so I pulled it up. Well, we deployed after this because we were on our workup cycle, which is to get us ready for deployment. And so I would pull that footage up every once in a while and just watch it. And I'm like, how is this thing in the air? You know, what is that? How is it doing that? You know?
So prior to that, you didn't consider the possibility of UFOs?
It really wasn't something that I thought about.
It's not that you didn't believe, it was
Yeah, I mean, it was
just
something.
wasn't there in your consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, and if I saw a show on TV like Ancient Aliens come on, I would kind of roll my eyes and change the channel, you know. But you know, now that I knew it was real, you know, because I've seen it, it was quite profound gut punch for me.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's happened to me before.
Well,
Totally.
We do have a caller. Thank you for that, Matthew.
Yeah, no problem.
And I will have you back on the show again someday so we can talk more about that. But we do have a caller. We have Joni on from Pennsylvania. Joni, you're live on the air.
I want to know if, I don't know if you already talked about this. Does anybody have theories on the Phoenix Lights?
Yeah, we already talked about the Phoenix Lights in the very beginning of the show.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. I'll have to give Bill grief about that.
Wait, tough host.
Anyway, huh?
Tough host.
Yeah, I know. All right, well, we have just 4 minutes left. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that? I mean, I kind of cut your story short just because we have 4 minutes left. I don't know if anyone else wants to ask Matthew a question. I mean, you were doing a really good job. Yeah.
Matthew, can you ever talk about, you say you can't talk about what you did in the Navy or maybe you have experiences you can't talk about. Will there be ever a time, maybe when you're in your 60s, 70s, whatever, that you can
75 years, right?
talk about it? I mean, is there any time?
3 minutes.
You know, I don't think so. I certainly am not going to take anything to my grave. I'll tell you that right now. So we'll see.
So follow him around.
So on your deathbed, you're gonna have that. I'm gonna have that tape recorder ready. Okay.
What's today the date?
I'll say this. So I think all of this is going to come out. I mean, I don't think I'm going to have to say anything. I think it's all already coming out. We talked about how this follows bloodlines, right? There's this new book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Right? That's a huge deal. That is a big deal.
And there was some bill or something that was just drafted in the last day or two, and it's pretty clear that the intelligence committees have seen some pretty bizarre things because they're talking about something like to study, above and underwater, like all mediums kind of thing. So it's like, I think that they do have some information that has been turned over maybe by Lou or some of these things that we might not ever get to, but I think they're convinced now. So
I think that's true. I mean, I know that we are all familiar with UFOs, and some of us are familiar with the unknown submerged objects, the very fast movers, as we've called them right in the past. That's what they were called on the boat I was on. I was a visitor, not a sailor. Yeah. And so it turns out that those unknown submerged objects are very real. And decades ago is when this happened that I had that experience where I saw this several hundred knots, this object moving through sonar very, very quickly. And they were called fast movers on that boat. And I did a job for the Joint Chiefs a couple of years later. And the chief said he couldn't tell me about the program when I asked him about it specifically. He could have said, what's that program? I'd never heard of it, but he didn't. So clearly, above the water, below the water, stuff's happening. And I know that they're here. I sense strongly that they're here.
Yes. So thank you, everyone. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate all the time and your hospitality out here. Next week, we have our 10th anniversary show, and you think there's a lot of people here now. You'll see how many people will be involved in that. So 10 years coming up next week, and you're going to do some math, and you're going to say, yeah, thank you. You're going to do some math and say, okay, only 478 shows. That should be 520 shows. And I used to do the show once every 2 weeks. That's why that someone was asking me about that. But thank you so much, everyone. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.